Okay, let's be honest. The title of Robert Sutton's book, The No Asshole Rule, is pretty much designed to grab your attention, right? But seriously, underneath that very blunt title is a really powerful argument. It says that workplace incivility, the daily grind of dealing with jerks, isn't just annoying. It's a direct, measurable drain on performance, on creativity, and yeah, on the bottom line. So let's get into it.
So to kick things off, the book hits us with this fascinating, kind of counterintuitive psychological twist. We all just assume that bad behavior is contagious, that it just spreads. But what if that's not the whole story? What if, and stick with me here, what if seeing one person break a rule could actually make the rules stronger for everyone else? It sounds completely backwards, I know, but it's a core idea for making this whole thing work.
Okay, so here's the thinking behind this. Sutton points to research showing that when a social rule like, don't litter or be respectful is really clear, one person violating it acts like a giant flashing neon sign. That one bad act makes the norm, the rule so much more vivid in everybody else's mind. And get this, it actually makes them more likely to follow the rule. That's a huge idea for any leader trying to build a better culture.
But for that whole psychological principle to kick in, you have to be super precise. If you're going to enforce a rule like this, it can't just be a witch hunt for anyone who annoys you. And that brings us to the first major takeaway from the book. You absolutely need a clear, objective way to identify the problem. You need a litmus test.
And this is a really crucial distinction the book makes. Look, we can all have a bad day. We can all act like a temporary jerk. The real target of this rule is what Sutton calls the certified asshole. The key here is that we're looking for a persistent pattern. This is somebody who consistently leaves a trail of people who feel demeaned and de-energized behind them.
And the test he lays out is actually super simple. It really just boils down to two questions. First, think about how people feel after they interact with this person. If they consistently feel humiliated or just totally drained, that's a massive red flag. And second, who's the target? The classic sign, as you can see here, is that they kiss up and kick down. They save their worst behavior for subordinates or colleagues who have less power to fight back.
All right, so that brings us to our second big idea. Once you've identified the problem, the book starts to quantify the damage. And we're not just talking about hurt feelings here. There is a very real, very high cost that toxic people slap on an organization. It's almost like a hidden performance tax that everybody is forced to pay every single day.
Just let this number sink in for a second. Research that Sutton highlights shows that one negative interaction has 5 times the impact on our mood and motivation as a positive one. 5 times. That means it takes a whole lot of good vibes and positive interactions to undo the damage from a single demeaning comment. I mean, the math is just brutal, and it shows you exactly why one toxic person can poison an entire team.
And here are the items on that tax bill. It's not just that people are unhappy. Mistrust starts to spread. Communication devolves into those defensive, cover-your-ass emails we all know and hate. People stop giving that discretionary effort, that extra bit of creativity and energy they're happy to give when they feel safe and respected. The result is just this slow, corrosive drain on the whole organization.
So, okay, we can identify the problem, and we totally get the staggering cost. But how do you actually make the no asshole rule a reality? Well, our third takeaway is all about implementation. Because let's face it, having a rule on a poster means absolutely nothing if people see it being broken every single day with zero consequences.
One of the biggest roadblocks is what Sutton calls the smart talk trap. And you've seen this before, right? A company's website goes on and on about how it values respect, but that brilliant, high-performing jerk gets away with murder. It says teamwork is everything, but it rewards individuals who crime over their colleagues to get ahead. When what you say and what you do are totally out of sync, the rule becomes a joke, and cynicism just takes over.
Now, this is such a critical piece of nuance. Putting this rule in place is not about creating a workplace where everyone's afraid of conflict. Not at all. In fact, the book argues that healthy, passionate debate about ideas is absolutely essential. The key is to attack the problem, not the person. And this quote just captures that spirit perfectly. Argue your point with conviction, but listen with enough humility to accept you might be wrong. Without that balance, you don't get respect, you get fear. And finally, the book does something really important. It turns the lens inward. Because, it's easy to point fingers, but a healthy culture really requires self-awareness. Sutton tells this great story about a student who was given a button that said, "Admitting you're an asshole is the first step." It's funny, but it's also a powerful reminder that we all have an inner jerk, and learning to manage it is just as important as calling out bad behavior in others.
So after this really quick tour, you can see that the book gives you a clear framework. It helps you define the problem with a simple test, it helps you calculate the very real costs, and it gives you a roadmap for how to actually do something about it, warning you of all the common traps along the way. Which of course leads us to our final question.
If this little explainer has you thinking, then that's really the whole point. Whether you're a leader trying to build a better team or just an employee trying to survive the day, the ideas in this book really push you to ask yourself, what is the real hidden tax that toxic behavior is charging you and your organization? And maybe more importantly, what are you prepared to do about it?